Princess Zara stood in the center of the grand war chamber, her blue skin pale under the harsh lights. The massive holographic display showed a human male sitting in a prison cell. His face was marked with scars, his clothes torn from battle. Emperor Vex, her father, walked around the display with pride in his golden eyes. "Look at this creature," Vex said, his voice echoing in the chamber. "The humans call him Ben. He destroyed 3 of our finest assault cruisers by himself. What do you think of our prize, daughter?" Zara's hands shook as she stared at the image. Her father thought she was trembling with fear of the human warrior. He was wrong. She was afraid, but not of Ben. "Father, perhaps we should consider," she began. "Consider what?" Vex interrupted, his tone sharp. "This human is the perfect example of their savage nature. We will make a public display of his execution. The entire galaxy will see that the Kethmori Empire cannot be challenged." The war had lasted 2 years. The Kethmori Empire had been expanding across star systems, claiming worlds for their growing population. Earth was supposed to be an easy target. The humans were young in space travel, their technology basic compared to the Empire's advanced weapons. But the humans had surprised everyone. They fought with a fury that shocked the galaxy. They used tactics that seemed impossible. They protected their worlds with a determination that made even veteran Kethmori soldiers pause. Ben had become famous among both sides. The human warrior who appeared wherever the fighting was worst. He moved through battlefields like a force of nature. Kethmori soldiers told stories of him in whispers. They said he could destroy a warship with nothing but small weapons and clever thinking. "The execution will be broadcast across all our worlds," Vex continued, still circling the hologram. "Let every species see what happens to those who oppose us." Zara watched her father's face. She saw the cruelty in his smile, the pleasure he took in planning another being's death. This was what truly frightened her. Not the human in the cell, but the monster standing beside her. "I request permission to interview the prisoner," Zara said quietly. Vex stopped walking and turned to face her. "Interview? Why would you want to speak with this savage?" "To understand their fighting methods," she lied. "If we know how humans think in battle, we can defeat them more easily." The Emperor considered this. Zara held her breath, hoping her father would agree. She needed to see Ben for herself. The stories about him didn't match what she had learned about humans through secret communications with peace groups. "Very well," Vex decided, "but you will have guards with you, and you will not get too close to the cell. Humans are unpredictable animals." Zara bowed her head. "Thank you, father." The prison levels of the Imperial flagship were cold and dark. Zara walked through the corridors with 2 guards behind her. Most cells held various prisoners from different worlds the Empire had conquered. Some were soldiers, others were civilians who had spoken against Kethmori rule. Ben's cell was in the highest security section. As they approached, Zara heard something unexpected. Voices. Multiple voices speaking in different languages. The guards stopped at a safe distance from the cell. Zara moved closer and peered through the energy barrier. What she saw made her heart skip. Ben sat on the floor surrounded by young aliens. They were children of different species. Some Kethmori, some from other conquered worlds. He was teaching them basic mathematics, drawing numbers in the dust on the floor. "Now, if you have 5 apples and you give 2 to your friend, how many do you have left?" Ben asked gently in the common trade language. A small Kethmori child raised her hand. 3! "That's right," Ben smiled. "Very good," Zara stared in shock. This was the savage warrior her father described? This gentle being teaching children? The prisoner looked up and saw her watching. Their eyes met through the barrier. "Princess," Ben said, standing slowly. The children scattered to other parts of the large cell. "I was wondering when someone from the royal family would visit." "You know who I am," Zara said. "Hard not to recognize the Emperor's daughter," Ben replied. "Though you look different from the propaganda images." More thoughtful. One of the guards stepped forward. "Prisoner, you will show proper respect to the princess." Ben looked at the guard, then back at Zara. "I meant no disrespect. I was giving an honest observation." Zara studied the human's face. His scars told stories of many battles, but his eyes were kind. This was not what she had expected. "The children," she said. "Why are they here with you?" "Prison overcrowding," Ben explained. "There wasn't enough space in the civilian section, so they put some of the younger prisoners here. I try to keep them occupied." "You teach them," Zara observed. "Basic things. Math, reading, stories from my world. Keeps their minds off their situation. And they're not afraid of you? Ben tilted his head. Should they be? Before Zara could answer, one of the guards spoke up. Princess, we should return. The Emperor expects a full report. Zara nodded, but she didn't move. She continued staring at Ben, trying to understand what she was seeing. Princess, Ben said softly, if I may ask, why did you really come here? The question surprised her. Most prisoners begged for mercy or hurled curses. This human was asking about her motivations. To see the monster my father captured, she answered honestly. Ben was quiet for a moment. And what do you see? Zara didn't answer. She turned and walked away, her mind spinning with confusion. That night, Zara couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the scene in the prison. The human warrior surrounded by children, teaching them with patience and kindness. It didn't match anything she had been told about humans or about Ben specifically. She accessed the military records about Ben's capture. The report said he had been found defending a transport ship filled with civilians. When Kethmori forces surrounded him, he had surrendered immediately to prevent harm to the non-combatants. The 3 cruisers he had destroyed were targeting evacuation ships. Ben had used small fighter craft to disable their engines and weapons, forcing them to retreat. He could have destroyed them completely, but chose not to kill the crews. Zara dug deeper into the files. Every battle Ben had fought followed the same pattern. He appeared wherever civilians were in danger. He used tactics designed to disable rather than destroy. When captured soldiers were found after his attacks, they were unharmed. This was not the savage her father described. This was something else entirely. The next day, Zara returned to the prison. This time she came alone, using her royal authority to dismiss the guards. Back so soon? Ben asked as she approached his cell. I read your military file, Zara said. And what did you learn? That every engagement you fought was defensive. You were protecting evacuations, medical facilities, civilian transports. Ben nodded. That's what soldiers are supposed to do. Protect people who can't protect themselves. The 3 cruisers you destroyed disabled, Ben corrected. I disabled their main systems. They limped home with minimal casualties. Why? You could have killed everyone aboard. Ben sat down on the floor, leaning against the wall. Because they were following orders just like I was. Most of those sailors probably have families. Killing them wouldn't change anything except create more grief. Zara stared at him. In Kethmori culture, showing mercy to enemies was seen as weakness. Her father had taught her that strong leaders must be ruthless. My father plans to execute you publicly, she said. I know, Ben replied calmly. It's what I would do in his position. I'm a symbol to your people now. Destroying that symbol sends a message. Doesn't that frighten you? Ben considered the question. Death doesn't frighten me as much as the thought of becoming something I'm not. There are worse things than dying. Over the following days, Zara found herself returning to the prison again and again. She told herself she was gathering intelligence, but the truth was more complex. She was fascinated by this human who remained gentle despite facing death. Ben told her stories about Earth, about humans who sacrificed themselves for strangers, about societies that valued protection over conquest. He spoke of leaders who gained power through service rather than fear. On my world, Ben said during one visit, we have a saying. The strength of a society is measured by how it treats its weakest members. And how does your society measure? Zara asked. We're not perfect, Ben admitted, but we try. We believe that protecting others is what separates civilization from savagery. These conversations began to change how Zara saw everything around her. She noticed things she had ignored before. The fear in servants' eyes when her father entered a room. The way conquered peoples were treated as slaves rather than citizens. The casual cruelty that passed for normal in the imperial court. 1 week before the planned execution, Zara made a discovery that changed everything. She was reviewing prisoner files when she found records of other humans captured during the war. Most had died in custody under suspicious circumstances. The official reports claimed natural causes, but the timing was too convenient. Her father had been eliminating human prisoners to prevent any rescue attempts. Ben was being kept alive only because his execution would serve as propaganda, but it was the next file that truly horrified her. Plans for the Empire's next target after Earth was conquered, a peaceful colony world called Haven, inhabited by refugees from multiple species including humans and Kethmori dissidents. The plan was simple and brutal. Complete extermination of the population as an example to other potential rebels. No prisoners, no mercy, no survivors. Zara felt sick reading the details. Her father wasn't just planning to conquer Haven, he was planning genocide. That night, she visited Ben's cell one final time before the execution. "You seem troubled," Ben observed as she approached. "My father is a monster," Zara said quietly. Ben was silent for a long moment. "And that frightens you more than any human warrior could." "Yes," she whispered. "I'm afraid of becoming like him. I'm afraid that ruling means becoming cruel." "Leadership doesn't require cruelty," Ben said gently. "The best leaders I've known led through example, not fear. They inspired people to be better, not forced them to submit." "How can you remain so calm knowing you're going to die?" Ben smiled sadly. "Because I've lived according to my principles. I protected people who needed protection. I showed mercy when I could. I remained human even in the worst circumstances." "I wish I had your courage," Zara said. "You do," Ben replied. "You're here, aren't you? Talking to the enemy, questioning everything you've been taught. That takes tremendous courage." Zara looked around the prison, thinking about all the innocent people locked away for opposing her father's rule. She thought about the children Ben taught, about the kindness he showed even as he faced death. She thought about Haven and the innocent families who would die if her father's plan succeeded. "Ben," she said slowly, "what would you do if you could stop a great evil, but it meant betraying everything you had been taught?" "I'd stop the evil," Ben answered without hesitation. "Sometimes doing the right thing means making impossible choices." Zara nodded, her decision crystallizing. She had been afraid of the wrong person. Her father was the true monster, and she was the only one positioned to stop him. "The execution is tomorrow," she said. "I know." "What if it doesn't happen as planned?" Ben studied her face carefully. "Princess, whatever you're thinking of doing, consider the consequences carefully. Your father won't show mercy if you cross him." "Neither will I," Zara said quietly. She turned to leave, but Ben called after her. "Princess, whatever happens tomorrow, remember that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right despite being afraid." Zara nodded and walked away. She had work to do and very little time to do it. The human warrior had taught her something her father never could. True strength came from protecting others, not from instilling fear. Tomorrow she would discover if she had the courage to live by that principle. As she walked through the corridors of her father's ship, Zara was no longer afraid of the human in the cell. She was afraid of allowing her father's evil to continue unchallenged. The execution was scheduled for dawn. But if Zara's plan worked, the galaxy would see a very different kind of demonstration. Not the Empire's cruelty, but the power of mercy and the courage to stand for what was right. The real battle was about to begin. The execution platform stood ready in the main hangar bay. Thousands of Kethmori soldiers and civilians filled the space, waiting to witness the death of the human warrior. Emperor Vex stood on the raised platform, his golden robes flowing as he prepared his speech. Princess Zara watched from her position near the royal viewing area. Her heart pounded as she checked the small device hidden in her sleeve. Everything depended on perfect timing. Ben was brought onto the platform in heavy restraints. The crowd roared with approval as they saw the famous human prisoner. Many had heard stories of his battles, of the ships he had disabled, of the soldiers who had faced him and lived to tell the tale. But Zara knew the truth. She had spent the last week learning everything she could about this human who had shown kindness to children and mercy to enemies. "Citizens of the Empire," Vex began, his voice amplified across the hangar. "Today we witness the end of human resistance. This creature before you represents everything our enemies stand for: chaos, savagery, rebellion against order." Zara moved quietly through the crowd, making her way toward the maintenance tunnels. She had studied the ship's layout for days, memorizing every corridor and passage. "But we are Kethmori," Vex continued. "We bring civilization to the galaxy. We create order from chaos, and today we show what happens to those who oppose us." The crowd cheered again. Zara reached the tunnel entrance and slipped inside, her royal access codes opening the sealed doors. She had to reach the prisoner transport route before they moved Ben to the execution chamber. As she crawled through the maintenance shafts, Zara thought about the conversation she had with Ben the night before. His words echoed in her mind. Sometimes doing the right thing means making impossible choices. She reached the transport corridor just as the guard escort approached. Using her authority as princess, she ordered the guards to step aside for a final interrogation. "Princess, the Emperor is waiting," the lead guard protested. "The Emperor will have his execution," Zara said firmly. "But first I need 5 minutes with the prisoner." Royal privilege, the guards reluctantly moved away. Zara approached Ben, who looked surprised to see her. "What are you doing here?" he whispered. "Saving your life," she replied, activating the device in her sleeve. The restraints around Ben's wrists clicked open. "But we're not escaping." "Then what?" "We're going to stop my father from destroying Haven Colony." Ben's eyes widened. "How do you know about Haven?" "I found the military files. Complete extermination of the population. Men, women, children. Every living being on that world." Ben stood slowly, rubbing his wrists. "And you want to stop it?" "I want to broadcast the truth. The communication array on level 7 can reach every world in the Empire. If people see what my father really plans, maybe they'll demand change." "That's suicide," Ben said quietly. "Your father will never forgive betrayal." "I know," Zara replied. "But you taught me something. True courage means doing what's right despite being afraid." Ben studied her face for a moment, then nodded. "Lead the way, princess." They moved through the ship using service corridors and maintenance shafts. Zara had planned their route carefully, avoiding main passages where they would encounter guards. Ben followed silently, impressed by her knowledge of the ship's layout. "How long before they realize you're gone?" Zara asked as they climbed through a vertical shaft. "The execution was supposed to begin in 10 minutes, Ben replied. "When I don't arrive, they'll search everywhere." They reached level 7 and emerged near the communication center. Through the corridor windows, they could see the main array chamber. 2 guards stood at the entrance. "I can handle them," Ben said. "Without killing them?" Ben smiled grimly. "You really have been listening." He moved with fluid grace, approaching the guards from their blind spot. Before they could react, he had disabled both of them using pressure points that left them unconscious but unharmed. "Learned that technique from a peaceful alien species we met during the war," Ben explained as he dragged the guards into a supply closet. "Sometimes the best weapons are the ones that preserve life." Inside the communication center, Zara began activating the broadcast systems. Her royal access codes opened channels to every world in the Empire. "This will take a few minutes to reach full power," she said, working at the control panels. "We need to." Alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Red lights flashed in the corridors outside. "They found the guards," Ben said, looking out the chamber windows. "We have maybe 5 minutes before they trace us here." Zara's hands flew over the controls. "Almost ready? I'm accessing the military files about Haven now." The communication array hummed to life. Across the Empire, citizens on dozens of worlds would soon see whatever message they broadcast. "Princess Zara!" a voice echoed through the ship's communication system. Emperor Vex sounded furious. "Return to the execution platform immediately. Your treachery will not be tolerated." "He knows," Zara said. "Then we make this count," Ben replied. He moved to the secondary control panel. "I can boost the signal strength." "Make sure every world receives this clearly." Zara activated the broadcast. Her image appeared on screens throughout the Kethmori Empire. "Citizens of the Empire," she began, her voice steady despite her fear. "I am Princess Zara, daughter of Emperor Vex. I speak to you now because you deserve to know the truth about our government's actions." The military files about Haven appeared on screen, showing detailed plans for the complete destruction of the colony world. "My father plans to murder every living being on Haven Colony. Not soldiers, not rebels. Families, children, innocent people whose only crime was seeking a peaceful life." Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. The royal guard was approaching. "This is what our empire has become," Zara continued. "Not protectors of civilization, but destroyers of innocence. And I can no longer remain silent." The chamber doors burst open. Emperor Vex strode in, followed by a dozen armed guards. His face showed absolute rage. "Shut off this transmission immediately," he commanded. "No," Zara said, standing beside Ben. "The people need to know." Vex looked at Ben with hatred. "You did this. You corrupted my daughter with your human weakness." "Your daughter made her own choice," Ben replied calmly. "She chose to protect innocent lives." "Innocent?" Vex laughed harshly. "There are no innocents in war. Only the strong and the weak. The conquerors and the conquered. That's where you're wrong, Ben said. I've fought in this war for 2 years. I've seen Kethmori soldiers show mercy, protect civilians, question cruel orders. Your people aren't naturally savage. They're following a savage leader. Zara looked at her father with new eyes. She saw the madness in his expression, the complete lack of empathy for other living beings. You called Ben a monster, she said to her father, but he spent his imprisonment teaching children and showing kindness to prisoners. You spend your time planning genocide. I spend my time building an empire, Vex snarled. Creating order from chaos. You create chaos, Ben said. Fear, hatred, suffering. That's not civilization. That's barbarism. Several of the guards looked uncomfortable. They had heard every word of the conversation, and it was being broadcast across the empire. Guards, Vex commanded. Execute both prisoners immediately. But the guards hesitated. One of them, a young officer, lowered his weapon. Emperor, the officer said slowly. The broadcast is reaching our homeworlds. My family can see this. I gave you an order, Vex raged. With respect, sir, another guard said, also lowering his weapon. I joined the military to protect the empire, not to murder children on colony worlds. Ben stepped forward, his hands visible and non-threatening. You can end this right now.
All of you.
You have the power to choose what kind of people you want to be. More guards lowered their weapons. The broadcast was reaching millions of Kethmori citizens, and they were hearing everything. Vex drew his personal weapon, pointing it at Zara. My own daughter, betraying everything I built. Everything you built was wrong, Zara said, and I'm not afraid of you anymore. Ben moved protectively in front of Zara. If you want to hurt her, you'll have to go through me. Gladly, Vex snarled. But before he could fire, the young guard officer stepped between them. No more, the officer said. Emperor, you're under arrest for planning war crimes against civilian populations. Other guards moved to support their officer. Vex found himself surrounded by his own troops. You fools, he raged. I made this empire strong. I gave you victory after victory. You gave us shame, the officer replied. I won't be able to look at my children knowing I helped plan the murder of other children. Zara moved to the communication controls. Citizens of the empire, she said to the cameras. What you have witnessed here today is a choice. We can continue following leaders who rule through fear and violence, or we can choose a different path. She looked at Ben, who nodded encouragingly. The human you see beside me was called our enemy, but he has shown more honor in captivity than our leaders have shown in power. He taught children, showed mercy to prisoners, protected the innocent even when it meant his own capture. Ben stepped forward. I've fought against your empire for 2 years. But I've also met many of your people who want peace, soldiers who protected civilians during battles, citizens who helped refugees find safety. You're not our enemies. Your leaders' choices made us enemies. Communications began coming in from across the empire. Other worlds were broadcasting their own messages. Citizens demanding answers about military actions. Soldiers refusing orders to attack civilian targets. Governors calling for investigations into war crimes. It's spreading, Zara said, monitoring the incoming signals. People are questioning everything. This is what humans do, Ben said to the watching guards. We inspire others to be better than they thought possible. Not through conquest, but through example. Over the following hours, the revolution spread across the Kethmori Empire. Military units declared their loyalty to Princess Zara rather than Emperor Vex. Colonial governors opened communications with rebel groups, seeking peaceful solutions to conflicts. Ben coordinated with human resistance forces, sharing information about Kethmori citizens who wanted peace. He provided communication channels between former enemies, helping arrange prisoner exchanges and civilian evacuations. Your father was right about one thing, Ben told Zara as they worked in the communication center. I am dangerous to his kind of leadership. Humans have a way of making people question authority based on fear. What makes humans so different? Zara asked. We learned early that survival depends on cooperation. When you're not the strongest or fastest species on your world, you learn to work together, to protect each other, to find strength in unity rather than dominance. The final broadcast came 3 days later. Emperor Vex had been formally removed from power by vote of the Imperial Council. Princess Zara was named as interim leader, with a mandate to negotiate peace treaties with all affected worlds. Haven Colony was declared a protected world under joint human Kethmori defense. The planned attack was cancelled. and supply ships were sent instead to help the colonists expand their settlements. Ben stood on the bridge of a human transport ship, preparing to return to Earth. Zara had offered him any position he wanted in the new government, but he had declined. "My job was to protect people," he said. "That job isn't finished yet. There are other conflicts, other places where people need protection." "Will we see you again?" Zara asked. "If you need help protecting innocents, call." Humans respond well to requests for help. As Ben's ship departed, Zara stood in the communication center where everything had changed. She thought about her father's words about strength and weakness, about monsters and savages. Her father had been wrong about everything. The real monster had been the one planning genocide. The real savage had been the one ruling through fear. Ben had shown her what true strength looked like. Not the power to destroy, but the courage to protect. Not the ability to inspire fear, but the wisdom to inspire hope. The human warrior her father had feared turned out to be exactly what the galaxy needed. Not a destroyer, but a teacher. Not a conqueror, but a protector. And in the end, that made all the difference. Across the galaxy, former enemies began working together to build something better. It would take time, and there would be challenges, but the example had been set. Humans, it turned out, were indeed dangerous to tyrants everywhere. Not because they were savage warriors, but because they showed others what civilization could really look like. The princess was no longer afraid. She had found her own courage, inspired by a human who chose mercy over vengeance, protection over domination, hope over fear. The galaxy would never be the same.